Have you ever been in an argument where your heart starts pounding, your palms begin to sweat, and your mind is racing, searching desperately for the perfect words to say? You can almost feel the heat in your chest as the other person raises their voice, interrupts you, or twists your words. In that moment, you wish you could say something so precise, so powerful, that everything just stops. The shouting stops, the noise stops, and the room falls silent. Not because you yelled louder, but because you spoke with such calm authority that no one could ignore you. Imagine yourself standing in the middle of that conflict. Someone is trying to dominate you, trying to win at any cost, and instead of snapping back or losing your cool, you respond with a single elegant sentence that cuts through the chaos like a knife. Their face changes, their tone softens, and suddenly, you are the one in control. That is the power of what I'm about to share with you. Today you are going to learn 5 responses so powerful, so simple, and so intelligent that they can silence almost anyone. And the best part? They do it without insults, without aggression, and without losing your calm. Whether you're dealing with a boss who talks over you, a difficult family member who loves to provoke you, or someone who tries to manipulate or humiliate you, these phrases will protect you and place you in a position of quiet strength. Pay close attention, because response number 3 is the one that can completely disarm even the most toxic manipulator. But before we go into them, I want you to really think about the last time you had a disagreement. Maybe it was a heated meeting at work. Maybe it was an argument with someone close to you. Maybe it was a stranger online who got under your skin. Think about what was said. Think about how you felt afterward. Did you leave wishing you had stayed calmer? Wishing you had chosen your words better? Wishing you had stood your ground without losing control? That's what today is about. This is not just about clever comebacks. This is about becoming untouchable, about learning how to stay calm when everyone else is losing their heads. Because real strength isn't measured by who shouts the loudest. Real confidence doesn't come from intimidation. And real respect is not something you force. It's something you inspire. These 5 responses are not tricks. They are tools. Tools you can use to guide the conversation, to set boundaries, and to remind yourself that no one can control you unless you give them permission. And that is where we need to start, with a little wisdom from the past. Thousands of years ago, there were men who faced situations far more dangerous than ours today. Men who faced exile, betrayal, war, slavery, and even death, and somehow remained calm. These were the Stoics. Epictetus, for example, was born a slave. He had every reason to be angry, bitter, and resentful. But instead of letting life break him, he turned inward. He realized something that changed his life. He could not control what happened to him, but he could always control how he responded. That is where his freedom began. Seneca, another great Stoic, lived in the heart of Roman politics. He advised emperors, surrounded by danger, corruption, and betrayal, and yet his letters teach us over and over again that peace comes from within. And then there was Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, ruler of the largest empire in the world. He faced war, plague, betrayal, and enormous pressure. But in his private journal, he wrote to himself about staying calm, staying kind, and staying rational. He reminded himself daily that control over others was not nearly as important as control over himself. All of these men believed something radical, something that is just as true today as it was 2,000 years ago. The only true power you have is power over yourself. You cannot control what others say. You cannot control what others do. But you can always control your own mind, your own tongue, and your own reactions. And that is exactly what these 5 responses will teach you to do. Because every day we are surrounded by noise. People are louder, angrier, and more reactive than ever. Social media rewards outrage. Arguments happen at work, at home, and even at the dinner table. Everyone wants to be heard, but very few want to listen. That is why the person who remains calm stands out. The person who can keep their voice steady while others are shouting commands attention. The person who refuses to be dragged into drama becomes a rare presence in a chaotic world. When you stay calm, you change the game. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to provoke. And you start to make people think twice before they cross your boundaries. This is why what I am about to give you is so powerful. These are not empty phrases. They are lessons. Lessons that will train your mind to stay sharp and steady under pressure. So let's begin. I want to take you through each one slowly, step by step. And I want you to imagine yourself using them in real situations. Because when you see yourself saying them, When you practice them, they will become natural. And when the time comes, you will be ready. Let's start with the very first response, one that has the power to stop a heated argument in seconds. Response number 1 is simple, but when you understand it deeply and use it correctly, it is like a superpower. The phrase is this: I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Think about the last time someone raised their voice at you. What happened inside your body? Your pulse probably sped up, your muscles tensed, your chest felt tight, and your brain started screaming at you to defend yourself. This is your fight or flight response. It is the instinct that has kept humans alive for thousands of years. But in arguments, it often works against us. When someone raises their voice, they are doing something very specific. They are trying to dominate the space. They are saying, listen to me, I am the loudest, I am the most powerful. And when you shout back, you are unconsciously admitting that they succeeded in pulling you into their game. This is why this first phrase is so powerful. By calmly saying, I don't need to raise my voice to be right, you break the pattern completely. Picture this. You are in a meeting. Someone disagrees with you and raises their voice. You feel the urge to fight back, but instead you take a slow, deliberate breath. You look them in the eye and say, in a steady, almost quiet tone, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Something magical happens in that moment. Everyone in the room suddenly feels the contrast. They notice that you are calm while the other person is agitated. You have just shifted the balance of power. You see, there are two kinds of power in an argument. There is noisy power, which comes from intimidation, interruption, and emotional outbursts. And there is quiet power, which comes from presence, confidence, and self-control. When you use this phrase, you step into quiet power. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon. They have found that in heated conflicts, the person who remains calm influences the emotional state of everyone else. It is called emotional contagion. When one person stays calm, others eventually lower their intensity to match. This is why this phrase works so well. It does not attack. It does not insult. It simply reminds everyone, including yourself, that the argument is not about who can shout the loudest. It is about who can stay rational. The Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago. Epictetus warned us that he who cannot control his tongue will be a slave to his emotions. When you say this phrase, you are proving that you are not a slave to anything. Not to anger, not to pride, not to fear. Let me give you another example. Imagine you are at home and someone you love is upset. They raise their voice at you. If you raise yours too, the situation escalates. Voices get louder, emotions spiral, and suddenly no one is listening. But if you take a deep breath and calmly say, I don't need to raise my voice to be right, you instantly set a new tone. The other person may still be upset, but they will feel the difference. You are refusing to add fuel to the fire. And here is a crucial point. This phrase does not just silence others, it silences you. It reminds you that you do not need to perform. You do not need to prove yourself through volume. Your value, your intelligence, your truth do not become stronger just because you shout them. They are already strong. This is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. Most people shout because deep down, they feel unheard. They feel weak, so they try to look strong. But when you speak calmly, you are sending a very different message. I am already strong. I do not need to shout to prove it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the best way to avenge yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. If someone shouts and you shout back, you have mirrored their behavior. You have become like them. But when you stay calm, you show that you are on a different level. Now, does this mean you should whisper? No, your voice should still be clear and steady. Calm does not mean passive. Calm means controlled. Your tone should carry confidence, not fear. Try practicing this phrase in front of a mirror. Imagine someone shouting at you. Then take a slow breath and say, I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Watch your face as you say it. Do you look centered? Do you look composed? If not, practice until you do. Because the delivery matters as much as the words, and do not underestimate the impact this phrase has on the people around you. In a group setting, when you stay calm while someone else is loud, you instantly become the voice everyone wants to listen to. It is human nature to trust the person who appears in control. So the next time you find yourself in a heated discussion, remember this phrase. You do not need to meet fire with fire. You do not need to win the shouting match. You only need to stand in your truth, calmly and clearly. This is the first step to mastering conflict the Stoic way. You have taken the argument out of the emotional arena and brought it back into the rational one. You have made the other person stop and think. You have made everyone else notice who really has control. Now that you understand this first response, we can go deeper, because sometimes the conflict is not about volume. Sometimes it is about tone, sarcasm, and subtle disrespect. And that is where response number 2 becomes your next powerful tool. Response number 2 is for the moments when conflict is quiet, subtle, and insidious. When someone doesn't just yell but uses sarcasm, mockery, or contempt to get under your skin, this is a different kind of challenge. It is not about who is louder. It is about who can manipulate, belittle, or provoke without ever raising their voice. In these situations, the most natural reaction is to strike back. We want to defend ourselves, to retaliate, to let the other person know that their words hurt. But that is exactly what they want. When you respond in anger, when you match sarcasm with sarcasm, you have already fallen into their trap. The phrase I want you to use here is this: the way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Notice how it works. It does not attack. It does not insult. It does not validate their attempt to provoke you. It simply holds up a mirror to their behavior. It points out, calmly and objectively, that their words reflect their own state, not yours. Imagine you are in a conversation and someone says something cutting. Perhaps a colleague makes a comment meant to undermine your credibility. Perhaps a friend makes a joke that is really a personal dig. You could respond with anger, with sarcasm. Or you could pause, look at them, and calmly say, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." Instantly, 2 things happen. First, the attack loses its power. Your composure acts like a shield that the other person's words cannot penetrate. Second, and perhaps even more important, it forces the other person to confront themselves. When spoken with calm authority, this phrase makes people reflect on their own behavior. It is as if you are holding up a mirror to their actions and asking them to see the reality of what they are doing. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This phrase is a direct application of that principle. You do not become like the person trying to provoke you. You do not give in to anger, to frustration, or to the desire to retaliate. You remain above the fray. There is also a subtle psychological effect. When someone attacks you with sarcasm or mockery, they are often testing boundaries. They want to see how far they can push you, how much they can get away with. By responding with this phrase, you instantly establish a boundary. You are no longer a participant in their game. You are observing it and calmly refusing to play. Let me paint another picture. You are in a team meeting. A coworker makes a sarcastic comment about your ideas. The room laughs uncomfortably. Normally, you might feel the urge to defend yourself or respond with your own sarcastic remark. But instead, you take a breath and say, clearly and evenly, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." The room shifts. The laughter stops. Your coworkers suddenly see the contrast. One person is calm, composed, and intelligent. Another is loud, sarcastic, and reactive. Without saying a single word about fairness or correctness, you have changed the energy in the room. You have become the reference point for how people should behave. And this works outside of work too. In families, friendships, and even online interactions, people try to provoke us constantly. Trolls, critics, and even well-meaning but overbearing people can push buttons with subtle language. This phrase disarms them every time. It removes the power from their words. Seneca, another great Stoic, warned, "To speak in anger is like shooting an arrow without aiming." When you respond in anger, your words rarely achieve the outcome you desire. They are wasted energy. But when you respond with calm precision, you aim with clarity, and your words land exactly where you want them to. Practicing this phrase is simple, but its impact is profound. Use it whenever someone tries to insult, belittle, or provoke you with words meant to destabilize. Say it slowly. Say it clearly. Let the calm authority in your voice speak as loudly as the words themselves. And notice the internal effect as well. Every time you use it, you reinforce your own emotional independence. You remind yourself that the opinions, attacks, and provocations of others do not define you. You are free in your mind, free in your emotions, and free in your response. This is the second pillar of Stoic communication. It teaches you that your power is not in matching aggression, but in holding your ground with calm intelligence. It shows others that you are someone who cannot be easily manipulated, someone whose respect must be earned, not demanded through intimidation. As you practice this phrase, you will notice something remarkable. People begin to treat you differently. They speak more carefully around you. They hesitate before trying to provoke. And most importantly, you begin to notice your own growth. You are no longer reacting impulsively. You are observing, choosing, and responding. You are becoming the person who stands in the middle of chaos and remains unshaken, and this is just the beginning. Once you have mastered calm authority in the face of sarcasm and mockery, you are ready to move to the next level, setting boundaries for when conversations are disrespectful. Which is exactly where response number 3 comes in. Response number 3 is where boundaries meet wisdom. This is the phrase you use when someone refuses to engage in a real conversation and instead turns dialogue into attack. Some discussions aren't discussions at all. They are battles disguised as conversation. Interruptions, raised voices, constant corrections, and attempts to impose their truth on you are all tactics designed to control the situation. This is when you say, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." Notice the difference in this approach. You are not running away. You are not ignoring the issue. You are not giving in. You are simply establishing a standard for the conversation, a standard that must be met before you participate. Imagine this scenario. You are trying to explain an idea at work. A colleague interrupts you repeatedly, speaking over you and dismissing your points before you can even finish a sentence. You could try to fight back in the same manner, but the argument escalates, tension rises, and nothing productive happens. Instead, you pause, take a deep breath, and say in a calm, measured tone, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." Instantly, the dynamic changes. You are no longer just another participant in the conflict. You have introduced a new rule. Respect is required to continue. You have defined the terms of engagement, and anyone who refuses to meet this standard loses the right to continue the conversation. This phrase is more than words. It is a declaration of principles. It signals that you will not compromise your dignity, that you value calm, clear, and meaningful discussion over chaos and confrontation. It is an emotional boundary, one that forces both you and the other person to step back and assess the conversation. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, taught, "You cannot control what others do, but you can control what you accept." This is the essence of this response. You are exercising control over what you accept in a conversation. You are choosing not to participate in disrespect. You are not giving permission for toxic behavior to continue. Think of it in another context. Perhaps it is a family gathering, and a relative starts making dismissive or belittling comments. Normally, you might bite your tongue or retaliate, but with this phrase, you rise above the drama. Calmly stating, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully," communicates that you are not a participant in childish behavior. You are holding space for maturity and clarity. The power of this phrase lies not just in what it does for others, but in what it does for you. By using it, you practice self-mastery. You practice patience. You practice the art of choosing your battles. You no longer expend energy reacting to every slight or provocation. Instead, you focus on what truly matters: clarity, reason, and maintaining your own peace of mind. Let me give you a workplace example. Imagine a manager is berating a team member unfairly and emotions are high. Instead of responding defensively or getting caught up in the tension, one team member calmly says, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." Immediately, attention shifts. The conversation is no longer about the conflict itself, but about the tone, about the minimum standard required for meaningful dialogue. You have reframed the discussion. You have raised the bar. This phrase also has a psychological effect on the person who is being disrespectful. When they hear it, they are forced to reflect. They may feel embarrassed or even shame for their behavior. In many cases, it causes them to pause and reconsider their approach. You are not humiliating them. You are simply setting a boundary they cannot ignore. Practicing this phrase strengthens emotional intelligence. You are learning to respond rather than react. You are learning to maintain composure under pressure. You are learning to influence the dynamics of conversation without aggression. And this skill is not limited to verbal interactions. Body language, posture, and tone all reinforce this message. Stand tall, make eye contact, and speak in a steady, controlled voice. Your presence amplifies the authority of the words themselves. Over time, this response becomes a habit. It becomes a default mode of engaging with conflict. And as it becomes natural, you will notice a change in how others approach you. People begin to treat you with more care, more respect. because they recognize that you will not participate in chaos or disrespect. This is the essence of Stoic communication, using intelligence, calm, and clarity to command attention and respect without force. You are no longer just defending yourself. You are leading the conversation. You are creating an environment where meaningful dialogue is possible and meaningless conflict is not. And that brings us to response number 4. Sometimes the highest form of respect for yourself is to disengage entirely. There are moments when no response is necessary, when continuing a conversation only drains your energy, your focus, and your peace. That is when you will use, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." But before we move to that, reflect on this. Using, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully," is about elevating every interaction. It is about refusing to participate in chaos. It is about teaching people, without aggression, that your presence comes with standards. And once you understand this, the next phrase, disengagement, becomes even more powerful because it is rooted in the same principle, protecting your mind and your dignity. Response number 4 is about the quiet power of disengagement. There are times when continuing a conversation is not only unproductive, it is harmful. The other person is not listening, they are not trying to understand, and their goal is not dialogue but domination. In those moments, the wisest, strongest choice is to remove yourself from the situation entirely. The phrase is simple. "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." Notice how calm, clear, and firm it is. It is not defensive. It is not apologetic. It is not a request. It is a declaration. You are asserting your boundaries, protecting your peace, and reclaiming control. Imagine this scenario. You are in a meeting, and a colleague keeps attacking your ideas. Every response you give is met with ridicule. Every attempt to explain is interrupted. The energy is tense, toxic, and escalating. At some point, continuing the conversation is futile. You have tried logic, reason, and patience. Nothing works. Now you speak. "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." Instantly, you do several things at once. First, you remove yourself from the toxicity, protecting your mental and emotional energy. Second, you set a clear boundary that the behavior is unacceptable. Third, you model calm authority. You are not retreating out of fear or weakness. You are choosing strength, the strength of self-control. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, reminded us, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." This phrase embodies that teaching. By choosing to disengage, you prevent others from dictating your emotional state. You prevent their chaos from becoming yours. This is not surrender. This is mastery. Mastery over your mind, your energy, and your dignity. Walking away from a fruitless or toxic conversation does not make you weak. It makes you wise. It makes you powerful. It signals to everyone around you, including the one attempting to provoke you, that your peace is more important than the empty need to win an argument. Let me give another example. Perhaps a friend is pressing you about a personal decision, criticizing your choices relentlessly. You have tried to explain, to reason, to show empathy. But the conversation only escalates. At that moment, simply stating, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation," shuts down the cycle without aggression. You maintain your dignity and preserve the relationship by not allowing it to devolve into conflict. There is also a subtle social effect. People notice who chooses to disengage thoughtfully. They notice who does not allow themselves to be drawn into unnecessary drama. This observation is powerful. It commands respect without raising your voice. It asserts control without attacking. Disengagement is also a practice in emotional independence. By using this phrase, you are reinforcing that your inner state does not depend on approval, agreement, or the validation of others. You are teaching yourself that peace is a choice, not a consequence of external circumstances. Practicing this phrase requires mindfulness. It requires recognizing the point at which continued engagement no longer serves a productive purpose. It requires the courage to step back, even when others expect you to react, to fight, or to defend. When used consistently, this response transforms the way people interact with you. They learn that provoking you will not achieve the results they expect. They learn that your calm, controlled presence is not a weakness, but a signal of deep strength. And remember, disengagement does not mean avoidance in life's important matters. It simply means choosing when to engage. It means prioritizing the conversations and interactions that matter and declining those that only drain or destabilize you. Over time, practicing this phrase builds resilience. It creates a mind that is unshakable by anger, criticism, or chaos. It frees you from the need to argue endlessly, to explain unnecessarily, or to justify your boundaries, ultimately saying, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation," is not about shutting down communication. It is about elevating it. It is about making every interaction count and removing yourself from the interactions that do not. It is about protecting the space within you where clarity, wisdom, and peace reside. And that brings us to response number 5, which is about asserting your perspective with respect and independence, even when others try to impose their worldview on you. That phrase is, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." Response number 5 is about asserting your independence without aggression. This is the phrase you use when someone, whether a friend, family member, or colleague, insists on imposing their beliefs, opinions, or worldview on you. Sometimes the confrontation is not about hostility. It is about control. It is about pressure. It is about making you feel obligated to agree, conform, or justify yourself. The phrase is simple. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Notice how powerful this is. It acknowledges the other person. It validates their right to have an opinion, but it also clearly defines your own position. You are not arguing. You are not dismissing them. You are simply stating your independence with clarity and calm. Imagine this scenario. A family member insists that you should make a life choice the way they think is best. They speak loudly, passionately, trying to convince you that they are right and you are wrong. The natural reaction is often to argue, to explain, or to justify yourself point by point. But that approach often drags you into frustration, fatigue, and tension. Instead, pause, take a breath, and calmly say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." Instantly, several things happen. First, you disarm the situation. You are not attacking, mocking, or belittling them, so the conversation cannot escalate into conflict. Second, you assert your boundaries. You are clearly stating that your decisions, beliefs, and perspectives are your own. Third, you demonstrate emotional independence. Your peace of mind is intact. Seneca wrote, "To be a slave to the opinion of others is the worst of all prisons." This phrase is a key to freedom from that prison. It reminds both you and the other person that you think for yourself. You do not require validation. You do not surrender your judgment. You are fully responsible for your own beliefs and actions. Using this response frequently builds a habit of emotional and intellectual independence. It trains you to respond calmly, even when pressured. It teaches others that your respect cannot be bought or coerced. And most importantly, it creates a sense of dignity in every interaction. Let me give another example. Imagine a friend who is passionately sharing their beliefs on a topic, trying to convince everyone around them. Rather than engage in endless debate, you calmly say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." The conversation does not need to continue. You have expressed your position clearly without conflict, without defensiveness, and without disrespect. This phrase is especially useful in professional settings. Colleagues often push their ideas or methods. Managers may insist on a particular approach. By using this response, you assert your independent judgment without causing tension. You are seen as confident, thoughtful, and composed. There is also an internal effect. Every time you use this phrase, you reinforce your own sovereignty over your thoughts and actions. You remind yourself that while others are entitled to their opinions, you are entitled to yours. You are practicing mental independence, which is the foundation of calm, resilient confidence. And like all Stoic practices, this is not just about words. It is about presence. When you speak calmly, steadily, and with eye contact, the power of the phrase is amplified. It becomes not just a sentence, but a signal. I am in control of my mind. I am in control of my peace. I am not swayed by pressure or opinion. This response, combined with the 4 we have already discussed, forms a complete system for navigating conflict and conversation with wisdom. Let's quickly recap all 5. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. Use this to assert calm authority over heated situations. The way you speak says more about you than it does about me. Use this to deflect sarcasm, mockery, and subtle attacks. Let's talk when we can do it respectfully. Use this to set clear boundaries and elevate the quality of dialogue. I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. Use this to disengage from toxic, unproductive, or harmful interactions. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Use this to assert your perspective and independence without aggression. These 5 responses do more than silence others. They protect you, strengthen you, and transform how people perceive you. They teach you emotional independence. They give you clarity, dignity, and control, and they allow you to rise above conflict rather than being consumed by it. The beauty of these phrases is that they are simple to say, yet profoundly powerful when used consistently. They are tools for life, for relationships, for work, and for any situation where communication matters. They are tools to practice the art of Stoicism in daily life. So now imagine yourself using them. Picture yourself standing calmly in a heated meeting, in a tense family dinner, or in a confrontation with a friend or colleague. You speak with clarity, presence, and authority. You are calm, you are grounded, and the other person pauses. The noise stops. Respect emerges naturally. And the most important lesson of all, respect is not imposed by shouting, by anger, or by dominance. Respect is inspired by character, by self-control, and by the wisdom to speak only what matters, when it matters, with calm authority. Practice these phrases. Integrate them into your life. Watch how your interactions transform. Watch how people respond to you differently. Watch how you begin to experience a new kind of freedom. Freedom from provocation, freedom from chaos, and freedom from the emotional traps that once controlled you. This is the power of Stoic wisdom in action. And this is your path to mastering communication, conflict, and control, not through aggression, but through presence, clarity, and integrity. Now, I want you to reflect. Which of these 5 responses will you use first? Which one speaks to your current challenge? Write it down. Say it aloud. Practice it. Because words have power, but intention gives them force. Remember, these are more than just phrases. They are habits of mind. They are ways to stand in calm strength when the world around you tries to pull you into chaos. And as you practice them daily, you will notice something extraordinary. People will listen. They will pause. They will respect you. And most importantly, you will feel the calm authority within yourself that comes from knowing that no one, not anger, not sarcasm, not pressure, can control your mind unless you allow it.